Welcome back to Hooligan Nation. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Rocco.
It's pretty funny to me that every time KISS chased a fad and it didn't work, everybody brought it up and killed them. And in some cases, rightfully so. I mean, I'm terrible at this and I know it and I keep saying it and I got to stop. But the comments that have come in the last couple weeks, some of them are so entertaining. Like, I can't remember who it was, but somebody brought up Carnival of Souls, and they called it Carnival of Seattle,
Mhm.
which I thought was funny. And then a couple comments down, he brought up something like the album cover should have been the Seattle Space Needle, which I just thought was funny as hell. But the point is everybody kills them, like, they chase disco, they get killed for it. They chase pop, they get killed for it. They chase the concept thing, they get killed for it. They chased grunge, they get killed for it. Well, they chased the new wave of British heavy metal and hit a grand slam home run, and nobody brings up the fact that, well, their average probably wasn't that good, but they chased that and it worked out very well. And look, by my account, the one big credit I'll give them is they came out with Creatures of the Night and they didn't change much for Lick It Up, and they didn't change much for Animalize. Like, they just kept going with that. It wasn't until Asylum that they started to chase that Bon Jovi sound, I guess is the best way to explain it. Animalize is not as good as Creatures of the Night or Lick It Up, but I think there's a lot of reasons for that. The
Well,
lack of a producer is probably part of the reason. The fact that, by all accounts, Gene is pretty much 100% checked out, and almost non-existent. Mark St. John is brand new in the band. So it was pretty much Paul Stanley carrying everything at the time. You know, Gene's songs on Animalize are either funny or terrible, because you can just tell by the songwriting he wasn't putting much effort into Kiss at the time.
yeah, I haven't listened to that album in a long time, so I'm going to be looking forward to when we go over that too. Um, One other note with creatures too, like you know I love, you've heard me say it to nauseum how much I love that Dynasty album. Okay, I'm going to just say that, and then after I say it, I'm going to say they needed to come out with a balls album, like an in your face rock and roll album. They were at that place and they seen what was good, what was working, and they nailed it as far as I'm concerned with with the whole creatures thing. If we're summing up creatures, like Dynasty was great. I didn't care for Unmasked, but when Creatures came out, I mean, I liked it then. I love it even more now.
Yeah, it definitely stands the test of time. That's for sure. It's kind of a timeless album that sounds as good today as it ever did.
And I mean, this may not be popular with the the old school Kiss fans that started from the beginning. I put Creatures right up there with every single one of their albums, and I loved all of the old albums. I love Destroyer. I love Love Gun. And the first album has all those classic songs that was basically their staple on every show since. But Creatures is right there on their tail. Creatures is that good of an album.
Hey, Kiss Army, we work hard on this podcast and try to give you the best content possible. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Also, the podcast is now on all the podcast platforms. So please like and follow us there and give us some 5-star reviews. It really helps us out.
And while you're there, please let us know if there's any Kiss related subjects that you would like us to cover in the future episodes.
I'm going to say something too that you're probably going to like. I always say Bruce is my second favorite, Gene's my first favorite, and you always kind of look at me like, what about Ace? Ace's licks and what he did on the guitar, you can't replace. So that's why I don't know if Creatures would be my all-time favorite, because if you say it's the all-time favorite, you're discounting what Ace did, and you can't. When you talk about Kiss, you cannot for a second dismiss what Ace put on those first 6 albums.
I don't think it's dismissing it, though.
Not dismiss it, but I hopefully you know what I mean by that. Like, he has legendary solos. He has legendary sounds of what made that band, set the foundation for that band. Like you say all the time, like he was the most important person in the band at the time.
Well, in the early albums,
I don't go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to step on. I don't go that far, but you know how, like, I think this is what you mean. You know how, like, Mick Mars is Motley Crue's sound, right? And the drums, Tommy Lee. But for the most part, you hear that riff, it's Mick Mars. Ace was Kiss's sound. They fed off of that. So from that perspective, I would say. I know I gave you a lot to think about there.
Well, no, it's just because you get into Destroyer, and in reality, you don't know what's Ace and what's a ghost musician.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? I don't even think about that stuff. But
and once you get into Destroyer and beyond, like, you really don't know when, for whatever reason, somebody called up Bob Kulick and said, "We need a solo. Can you come in here? We need a solo." Or, I mean, you don't know.
But if you listen really hard, especially the first couple albums, like, Ace puts his stamp on the solos. Like, if you really listen, you could tell when it's Ace and when it's not. Because Ace, we said it before, he's the chef, right? He puts perfect. He doesn't overdo it, and he puts perfect placement on his solos.
There's so many ghost musicians sprinkled throughout all the records. Like, I'm not even gonna take that into consideration. I mean, that's just what I think today.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because it's not something I even thought about when I said that. But
Well, like I keep telling you, these are the things that keep me up at night.
Mm.
I gotta think about which Kiss record is my favorite record, and who plays on it, and who's on the back cover as playing on it that doesn't really play on it.
I mean, summing up what, like, my take on the whole with Ace and if Ace, I wouldn't add anything to Creatures of the Night album at all. We said this many times, but it is Ace has a certain way of playing, and the tastiness of his solos, that it makes you curious what it would sound like if he was added to it, or in some kind of way. But I wouldn't change anything. I've said it many times. I wouldn't change anything about that album.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing on Creatures of the Night that I would change. And I think that's the only I know that that's the only album so far that I wouldn't change anything. I mean, some things would be small, but there's nothing on Creatures that I would change.
Just for the hooligans out there, listen, this is how we feel, but we're both. I think it's safe to say we're loving the comments. Like, it's starting to evolve in what we want. We want the comments, keep them coming, because you guys have some really articulate takes. And if you view Creatures different, feel free to put that on there too. But and that's what it's about. So again, thank you to the hooligans, because we're really having a blast with these comments, and we're trying to respond to every comment. So definitely continue, keep it coming.
If it's too loud, you're too old. Peace out, Hooligan Nation.